think about the new year, and we were trying to go back and forth on, well, how can we prepare and kind of team up here as far as a message goes for us. And well, we were coming up with different ideas and different thoughts, and of course we have both of our churches being kind of joined together again in celebration of, a reunion as we kind of worshiped together just a year ago. And just want to thank Zion again for sharing your facilities with us as we were under construction, and all that God has been doing in our midst. And for Annville, for us to go back and to be able to experience a gift. And I started thinking, wow, okay, a gift. We have a gift in a new building, but yet we also have a gift in new friendships with you here at Zion. And I started thinking about that theme as I was kind of putting together my part of the sermon on how can I set Pastor Brian up, as thinking about, for a good reason, in a good way. But, just kind of thinking about, coming from Christmas to this new year. And so Pastor Brian and I started thinking, I would kind of be preaching about the Christmas story, the gift that was given. And then he would be sharing about the new year. And I started thinking, I put this together, Pastor Brian, what do you think? I'll preach on the gift that was given, and you preach on the gift that was open. What do you think? Does that work? We'll plan that for next year. Okay. All right. So just being able to come together and think about, the gift. And that, of course, is something that we've kind of come through. That time where we've gathered together and experienced the gift. The gift of God the Father giving Himself, putting on flesh as an infant child. Jesus the Christ child. And I started thinking about, what passage should I preach on? And for some reason, the Lord led me to this Psalm 90. Psalm 90, and Luke read there for us that psalm and shared that Mr. Miller said that it was the oldest psalm. The oldest psalm. It's interesting. Mr. Miller, I'm going to give you a challenge here. What else is different about this psalm from all the others? Think about that for a minute. I'll put that out to each one of you. But I started thinking about this gift that was given on Christmas morn. A baby born in a manger by a young lady. Her husband there with her. And then all of a sudden, a little while goes by, and there are gifts being brought to this young infant child. I started thinking about, my times as a young child and thinking about, Charlie Brown, the TV specials that we see, Rudolph. And I started thinking about another TV show that I watched, and that was, the title of the sermon this morning, Frosty the Snowman. What does Christmas mean to you? You see, Frosty is pretty interesting because Frosty is a snowman that was put together by some kids after they were in school the day before Christmas, and they saw a magician, not so good of a magician, and they went out and built this snowman. And then, as they built this snowman, something happened. Do you remember? They put Frosty all together, and then all of a sudden, there was this hat that they found. The magician's hat. And they put that hat on top of Frosty, and do you remember what Frosty's first words were? Happy birthday. Happy birthday. What's given on birthdays? Gifts. Gifts are given on birthdays. And you see, Frosty's great adventure begins. His great adventure begins. Frosty realizes that, nature in and of itself brings about life. He understands that, well, as the temperature rises, though, his life is shortened. Why? Well, because he's a snowman and he's going to melt. I don't think any of us are going to melt this morning. We're not going to melt this morning. His young friend, Frosty's young friend Karen, wants to help Frosty travel to the North Pole because it's cold there and Frosty will live. So Frosty sets off to save himself, and he's pursued by Professor Hinkle. All seems well until his little friend Karen, why she becomes ill. And so Frosty takes her where? Takes her to a greenhouse. And greenhouses, they're not cold, they're pretty warm. And Frosty and Karen go into that greenhouse, and Professor Hinkle decides, well, he's going to do something. He's going to lock them in there. And so Frosty melts. He melts away, and then, of course, well, it's Christmas time in America, and we have this other guy by the name of Santa Claus, and he comes along in the story, and he kind of comforts Karen's little heart. And he says that Frosty was special because Frosty didn't just come from normal snow, he came from Christmas snow. And with that, in just a few little minutes, why, all of a sudden, a nice wind, a Christmas wind comes along, and Frosty, why, he lives again. I think about that, and I think about that story, and how I remember why it's a whole lot different today with the Christmas specials that go on today. And Frosty, he lives again because this Christmas wind blows across his melted remains. He lives again, and the hat is placed atop his head, and then all of a sudden, what are the first words that he says? Happy birthday. You see, Frosty the Snowman reminds us that life is too precious to be wasted. Life is too precious to be wasted. As we finish up Christmas, as we end Christmas 2013, and we embark on this new year, 2014, you see, another gift is given. For you and I have a whole new year that lies before us. A whole new year with a whole new number, 2014. You see, Psalm 90, not only is it the oldest psalm, but out of 150 chapters, the book in this book, this is the only psalm that was written by one person. Do you know who that one person is? It's Moses. This psalm was written by Moses. Moses led God's people from Egypt. They were in the wilderness for 40 years. Moses saw a whole generation die. And at the end of his life, he sits down and he writes. He has some observations to make. As a matter of fact, I'm going to challenge us with 5 of those observations. You see, Psalm 90 starts out, Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the earth and the world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You see, in that little manger, I believe God was challenging the world of that same message. From everlasting to everlasting, He is God. And you see then verse 17, may the favor of the Lord our God rest upon us. Establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. You see, verse 17 is the key to that psalm. It could be translated this way. If you want to leave a legacy, listen up. If you want your life to count after you're dead and gone, pay attention. So 5 suggestions for us kind of to help us to understand that that you see so many years ago, God came and gave us a gift in a small package that would grow. And then God, through that Christmas story, through that special Christmas gift, God gives you and I another gift. And that other gift is a whole new year. A whole new year. So the first suggestion here, the first that God gives to us through Moses is that we need to get our eyes on God. We need to get a God's eye view. A God's eye view. What's that mean? What's that mean to you, to get a God's eye view? Verses 1 to 2, Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. So for you, what is a God's eye view? What does that mean to you? I thought about this the other day as I have a friend. I have a friend and he hovers over my house a whole lot. And I like this friend because this friend makes sure that I don't get pests in my house. He's called a red-tailed hawk. And this red-tailed hawk, this friend of mine, he's about 3 feet tall. Oh, he's a big one. He gets fed a lot around my house. And the other day, he was, in the neighbor's backyard. And then he flew into my backyard, and I went and found something that gives me a better eye view. That's a pair of binoculars. I got my binoculars out, and I was watching this red-tailed hawk. I was intent on checking this guy out because he's my friend. You see, normally I see him hovering over top of my house. But this day he was up in a tree watching the ground. I started thinking about God's eye view. God watches you and I. Matter of fact, He is here with us right now. So for you and for me, a God's eye view. Remember that because He is God, our life matters. Our life matters. He is. All else finds its meaning and definition in the relationship with Him. Without Him, apart from Him, ultimately life makes no sense. You see, God became flesh and dwelt among us. Why? So that you and I might have salvation. So that you and I might have the greatest gift. So for us, we need to have a God's eye view of life. Apart from God, apart from Him, all we do has no meaning. Moses would challenge us to get a God's eye view. It's the first step in making the most of this new gift that God has given us, 2014. Secondly, don't forget that life is short. Life is short. We need a God's eye view, and then we need not to forget that, life is short. You turn in verse 3, men back to dust, saying, return to dust, O sons of men, for 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. The length of our days in verse 10 is 70 years, or maybe even 80, if we have the strength. Yet their span is but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass, and we fly away. You know that red-tailed hawk, why he stayed in that tree for a long time. And he was watching, and his head kept moving. His eyes kept perusing the ground to look, to watch, to see what was going on. Something's life was going to be cut pretty short. You see, our lives are here but for a short while. God sent His Son, Jesus, the Christ child, to be born so that you and I might have, everlasting life. Not so much here on planet Earth, but yet that we would live in eternity forever with Him. To have a relationship. Moses would call each of us to remember that life is short, and the truth of that statement should really impact our lives and challenge us. God has given us a gift. Now we need to open that gift and to do something with it. Thirdly, Moses would challenge us to remember sin. Sin makes us sigh. He says in verse 7, "We are consumed by your anger and terrified by your indignation. You have set your iniquities before us, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All our days," in verse 9, "pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moan." We finish our years with a moan. I don't know about you, but as I thought about Christmas this year, I kind of went through Christmas. How do you feel when Christmas is over? How do you feel when Christmas is over? For us in the Fenstermacher household, we go through the celebration, and then all of a sudden, well, let me tell you, the kids, they really moan because, school's going to start up again. So they really moan. They have a big, huge gasp. But you see, sin makes us sigh. Sin does something within us, and ultimately when we are caught in sin, and we ultimately will be caught, it shames us and brings devastation to our lives. And so Moses, he knows about this firsthand, doesn't he? And Moses would remind us that sin will have consequences in our lives. To make the most of our gift, we should avoid sin and shame. So now, as we look at life, we have this gift that was given, but a lot of times we leave that gift right there under the tree. And we don't open that gift, or we don't let that gift impact our lives. You see, and what happens, sin starts to creep in, and it starts to erode, it starts to devastate, it starts to destroy. And Moses would have us remember that sin brings about a sigh in our lives. Number 4, Moses would remind us that we need to develop a plan for personal growth in our life. Verse 12 says, "Teach us to number our days aright, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Relent, O Lord, how long will it be? Have compassion on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your unfailing love, that we may sing of joy and be glad all of our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us." Wow. Think about that for the children of Israel. For as many years as we have seen trouble. Keep me wise, O Lord, that verse is saying. Keep me growing. Satisfy us. Let us experience joy. Make us glad. Make us glad. As Christmas 2013 finished, what's your prayer for 2014? Moses here would challenge us to grow in our relationship with God. Take that gift and open it up. Then lastly, join God's work in the world. Moses challenges us. He gives us the suggestion to join God's work in the world. May your deeds be shown to your servants, your splendor to their children. I like the translation that says this: give permanence to the work of our hands. Let us do something that outlasts us. Let us leave a living legacy. Do you want to leave a legacy? See where God is at work and join him there. You see, Frosty, why he reminds us that life is too precious to be wasted. As we come through Christmas 2013 and we've celebrated God giving a special gift, his son Jesus, for you and for me. We need to take that gift and open it up. We need to get a God's eye view on the world, on our homes, on ourselves. Don't forget, that life is short. Remember that sin makes us sigh. Develop a plan then for personal growth in 2014. Join God's work in the world. Find out where he's working and join him there. You see, that's what happened in the manger, isn't it? You see, God came. He gave a gift. And people came. People joined God there. And so for us, as we prepare our hearts for this new year, this new gift that God has given to us, we have a tremendous challenge. And Pastor Brian is going to come and open up that challenge for us in just a little while. But let's now continue our worship in, well, giving a gift. Giving a gift in celebration of our tithes and offerings, Pastor.